Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. I hope everyone is doing well through this time and good luck on finals. We're almost there, so let's get started. The book I read is The Food Revolution by John Robbins, presented by me, Miranda Landry. So, this is the author. His name is John Robbins, and he has a really interesting story. So, he is an author, and he's the son of the co-founder of Baskin-Robbins, Irv Robbins. And so it's really interesting. At the start of the book, he goes on and talks about the reason that he left Baskin-Robbins. He could have been the CEO and owned the whole company and made millions from it, but he left it to pursue sustainable health. And there's one quote from the book that says, "When I walked away from Baskin-Robbins and the money it represented, I did so because I knew there was a deeper dream." So that's just kind of a little bit of a background about him and his motivations of why he left, which is really interesting. And then he is also the president of Food Revolution Network, which he started, which basically promotes his belief in if it's something, it's basically like the food revolution in an online platform of articles. And he is the author of 9 best-selling books that have collectively sold over 3 million copies and translated into 31 languages. He's also the founder of EarthSave International, and he's inspired millions to make food choices that have reversed illness like diabetes, heart disease, and he's just tried to contribute to making the world a more compassionate and sustainable world. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about his Food Revolution Network, and it's actually really interesting. I went on there just to look more, see more about it, what it's about, and their mission statement is, "The Food Revolution Network is committed to healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for all," guided by John and Ocean Robbins, which is his son. With more than 500,000 members and with the collaboration of many of the top food revolutionary leaders of our times, Food Revolution Network aims to empower individuals, build community, and transform food systems to support healthy people and a healthy planet. So that's just some little bit of information that might give you an idea of what his purpose is in writing the book. After the introduction that mainly talks about like his background, what caused him to get into nutrition and health and helping people, he starts talking about how you can prevent disease in literally everything that you eat. So talks about cholesterol, treating heart disease, how to lower your blood pressure, and how we can actually just break free of all these diseases if we actually just change the way that we eat. And so he presented the idea that we make ourselves unhealthy in the way that we choose to eat, and then we usually end up trying to fix it with surgery, when in reality we could fix it naturally with our diet. And this section of the book, part 1, Food and Healing, is the longest of the book, the longest portion of the book, and there's 4 parts. It focuses mostly like on the body. He clearly identifies that there is a relationship between the consumption of meat to cancer, and it's super weird like how we've just kind of almost become accustomed to like taking measures such as like chemotherapy and preventative cancer testing, when we could be taking our health more seriously by just watching what we eat. And it almost seems as though, like, pertaining to cancer, it's like a when, not if, like, that kind of mentality. Because, like, if you think about it, like, every year, how many people go through preventative cancer screenings, but then don't take a second look at what they're actually eating. And then he goes on to talk about the American diet, and he tells a lot of anecdotal stories. So at this point in his career, when he's writing this book, it's after, it's the 10th anniversary edition of the book, so he's kind of going back and recalling different stories, which is interesting and nice to see, like, the actual people that he has been impacting. And then he goes in to talk about American diet and suggests how you can make changes, and how also there's a lot of different, like, fad diets out there. And he talks about the Atkins diet, which is really interesting because I thought that was, like, a good one. But he talks about the Atkins diet, the Zone diet, and the Eat Right for Your Blood type diet, and kind of goes through and debunks them a little bit. And then it was really interesting. There are these portions in the book called the What We Know sections, and they just have different, like, little snippets of information, and one of them is said world champion vegetarian athletes, and it was just like a long list of athletes, and it made me think, like, if world-class athletes can be sustainable and still be successful and thriving what they do, then why can't I do it? And a lot of the mentality is, like, yes, we need protein from meat, and yes, protein is good, but we don't necessarily need it from animal protein. So he then goes into chapter 5, which is titled Healthy Plant-Based Diet, and it's basically, what does a healthy plant-based diet look for your life, and how can you achieve it for yourself? And then production, the following chapters were really kind of unnerving. It's not something I usually think about because I've never been, like, sick. I've never had, like, a foodborne illness, and so I never think about it at all. And there's one quote from Steve Bjerklie. I did not want to say that wrong. But there's a quote included in the book. The U.S. meat and egg industries say repeatedly that we have the safest meat and poultry supply in the world. And, like, that's what I think of when I think of, like, how our food is produced and stuff like that. But in the book, you find out it's not always that way. Yeah, so that's, kind of a summary of part 1. Part 2, Our Food, Our Fellow Creatures. Y'all, this section of the book, like, was the saddest, like, some of the saddest things I've ever read. And honestly, like, I think y'all should just buy the book and read chapter 9. Yeah. Like, so chapter 9 talks about this pig farmer, and John Robbins goes and visits this pig farm, and he sees how the pig farmer does it, and he has dinner, and, like, it changes this whole farmer's life and view, and you kind of see, like, his motivations behind why he does what he does, and it's really good. I'm not going to spoil it because it's just, like, I don't cry from books, but this part made me cry the most, and so I just threw up some cute farm animal photos on that slide because there's a ton of information about agriculture and the mistreatment of them, and just in general how we have taken advantage of them just because we can. And it really made me think about, if I can't go out and kill a chicken for dinner, then why do I feel okay going to the supermarket and getting like some chicken breasts from the meat section? And this section really makes you start to ask those questions. And I was going to say something else, and I forgot. Oh, I was going to say, if there's a book that you decide to read from these presentations, this is definitely the book to read, because it's basically what we've kind of had a lot of conversation about in class with Dr. Bloom. It's just a really, really good book. And there's even like a few graphics in here to kind of show the crazy stuff that like happens. Like one chapter title is called "Misery on the Menu," and it really is like super sad. Chapter 12, "Eating with Conscience." It's crazy to learn about, like, there's so many like animal crimes and mistreatments that go like unpunished, or like just nothing happens from the mistreatment of these animals, and it's really sad. Robbins does a good job of not just going into his argument like guns blazing with no solution. I talked about in the last slide how things are in American food production are really different from like things that happen in Europe. So there's one portion that's Hope in Europe that talks about the way that they produce food and the humane ways that it can potentially be done. So that does give a little bit of hopefulness. One of the most influential things that I read from this book that really has like stuck with me and I've thought a lot about, it says, "Some say there's no need to extend our compassion to animals because it says in the Bible that we are given dominion over them. But what does dominion really mean? Let's say you have 2 sons and you go out for the evening, and as you do, you say to the elder one, 'While I'm gone, you're in charge.' And you say to the younger one, 'While I'm gone, you've got to do what your older brother says.' You are giving the older boy dominion over the younger one for the time you're gone, are you not? But how would you feel if you came home later that night to find the older boy had subjected the younger one to relentless cruelty? Dominion means stewardship and respect. It means taking care of other beings, not abusing them." After covering how what we eat affects us, the book takes a turn into how we are affecting the world with what we eat. So the resources that it takes, the way we use them, and what we use to produce our food. And it kind of goes into talking about a little bit of how we did things in the past and how our new systems have since changed and become unsustainable, and how there's one point that was made that the animals that we're harvesting are polluting the water that we drink to a great extent. And that's just one example that he brings up in the book of the negative impact. It even goes into talking about, one of the subheadings is trading tropical rainforests for cheeseburgers. And when I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, like that really maybe an oversimplification of what actually happens, but that is basically it. When did this become a thing that cattle need places to eat, so we're going to cut down all of these trees that should be here and should be in this environment? And again, food is driving more, overtaking more things, and drives us to more environmental devastation. Part 4 is the shortest section of the book, and it talks about genetic engineering. And so food has changed a lot and has been changed, and it impacts our body and how we process food. Some foods are just not meant to be changed, and Robin speaks about different subjects and topics, including pesticides and their resistance, as well as genetic plant growth patents, and also drinking milk from cows who have been given growth hormone. So there's lots of different topics of interest in this portion of the book as well. As I was reading this book, it was interesting to see kind of similarities between what we had been talking about in class and what John Robbins had to say about nutrition. This book honestly was not my first choice, but I'm really glad that I got it because I really did enjoy it, and if there's one book that I think everyone should read in their life, it's this one. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me talk. I hope you guys have a great day.